want to do two things. We want to introduce you to a little bit of what we're doing at Interface now, and then invite you to collaborate with us on the next step in our sustainability journey. And it really started for us with the founder of our business. And we talk a lot typically at Interface about what we're doing on sustainability, how we're achieving renewable energy, what we're doing to address climate change. But it all started with a really significant why, which was a fundamental mindset shift in the founder. Interface was founded about 44 years ago by an American engineer. And for the first 60 years of his life, he was a capitalist and focused on building a business. And in 1994, a customer asked us a question that fundamentally changed his mindset. The customer asked us, "What is your company doing for the environment?" And we had no answer. We'd never thought of it. We had been running our business in a way that simply didn't account for environmental issues. And it caused a transformation in the business. It caused us to be a company that really put the idea of sustainable manufacturing at the core of the business. We set a 25-year goal to have zero negative impact on the environment and to show a restorative business model. And so we're 24 years into that journey, and it's been a lot of hard work, and it's been extremely rewarding. I came to Interface 15 years ago. I'm actually an environmental lawyer by training. And I came to the company because I saw Ray Anderson give a speech, and I was incredibly moved by his commitment. And that's how many of us have come to Interface. If you've never seen him and never saw him give a speech, there's an amazing TED Talk. You can actually just search his name on Google, Ray Anderson, and you can find some of his speeches, and you can hear him kind of telling the story of what we're doing and how he set us on this path. And it really was a shock to our business in 1994 to say we're going to run this business in a way with zero environmental impact. And it required our CEO not just to change his mind, but for us to change the minds of very different people and cultures in our business. We have 8 manufacturing plants around the world in very different religious cultures. The people who work for us have very different social and economic backgrounds, and so we set about to sort of change the minds of about 6,000 people, and this is what we've been able to accomplish. We have made some amazing progress on reducing harm in the business. We've done things like reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from where we started in 1994 to where we are now, 95%. And it seems like a ridiculously big number, but this is 24 years in the making. It's doing things like using renewable energy, implementing process efficiency, in some instances doing away with wasteful manufacturing processes that just didn't make sense. We've reduced the waste we sent to landfill by 91%. In the early days, it was simply about training employees that the stuff that's on the ground after we finish the products, or the yarn, costs us money and that we shouldn't throw it away. It was very simple mindset shifts about how we were going to do business differently. But we've been at this for 24 years, and the world has not improved in that time. Other businesses certainly have increased their focus on sustainability, and there are amazing leaders globally as well as here in Latin America. I mean, at Sustainable Brands this week, we heard great updates from Natura and Coca-Cola and some of the great businesses that are leading here, but we have a long way to go. So Interface has realized that 24 years into this mission, coming close to our original goals, it was time for us to set a new goal and really challenge the business to do something powerful. So when we set about having that conversation with our executive team and our employees about what's the next goal, the overwhelming feedback was, we can't be a business focused on sustainability unless we address the issue of global climate change. And we put that front and center in our business, and we find a way to further revolutionize Interface, our supply chain, and our customers with the climate in mind. And the first thing we realized was our language needed to change. We've spent 20 years convincing people that global warming is an issue. And while we've done it in many countries, believe it or not, over 60% of Americans believe that global warming is happening, despite what the president says. What we also did was we really disempowered people. We convinced them that this was such a huge issue that they didn't feel like they could fix it. So the first thing we said was we're going to take our climate back. We're going to set a goal in our business that's really ambitious. Instead of just a 20% carbon reduction, a 40% carbon reduction, we're going to set the goal for our business at something the world needs, which is a climate fit for life. And just like we did 24 years ago, we kind of stunned our business. And our employees started asking us, how are we going to do that? What is the roadmap? What are we going to measure? How are we going to create a climate fit for life? So we built a plan. And the plan was really based on science. This is based on the work of Johan Rockström at the Stockholm Resilience Center. And it's ridiculously complex. You can tell it comes from a scientist. But in summary, it's called the carbon law. And what this actually says is carbon is a really simple problem, and there's 3 things we need to do to address global warming. The first is we need to continue to move on the path of radical decarbonization. When I talk to our employees globally, what I say is that means we just need to continue stopping putting more CO2 in the atmosphere. It means we need to be a business that emits 0 carbon from our factories, from our supply chain, from our transportation, from everything that we do. Now, we were already on that path, but science says we have to take 2 more steps. We have to really focus on removing all that excess CO2 that exists from the atmosphere and bring it back down to the planet through new technologies, through new efficiencies, through things that will actually take that excess CO2 and do something productive with it. That's new human carbon systems. And we need to do both of those things. Stop putting more up there, remove the excess there while not screwing up the existing carbon sinks on the planet. The forests and the oceans that, until we put too much CO2 up there, could actually manage the carbon cycle in a realistic way. So science tells us we have to do those 3 things. So we set about to build a plan for our business that does those, that continues that path of radical decarbonization. We call it at Interface Living Zero. It just means we're going to get to 0 carbon. It means we're not going to emit that as a business. We will seek to work with our supply chain to first make them neutral, but then make them neutral without offsets, meaning they will also be 0. We call the second part love carbon. And we use that language for a reason, not just because we're Americans, but because we wanted to challenge our employees to think about this differently, not as something bad, not as a challenge, but as a potential resource that we could use. We envision ourselves finding ways to remove that carbon from the atmosphere and store it in buildings, in products, in our factories, to effectively use that like a raw material, just like we use nylon and backing right now. The third is this idea of letting nature cool. How do we run the business in a way that doesn't damage forests and oceans, and in fact enriches them? And then the last part, which is really important, we are only $1 billion business. What that translates to is 6,000 people, some of them in this room around the world. 6,000 people are not going to save the planet. But we hope that we will be able to show other businesses a plan, a path, and what's possible. That is really achievable and actually something Interface has already done. In 2004, when we started incorporating recycled content into our products, we pushed our supply chain to build a raw material that never existed. As soon as it was developed for us by one supplier, another supplier created it, then a third supplier, then competitors started using it, then design firms started specifying it, then our large companies like HSBC said we're only going to buy products that have recycled content. So we shifted our industry, we shifted our market, we impacted the built environment space, which we all know is collectively responsible for 20% of the CO2 emissions on the planet. So if we can have that impact as a 6,000 person company, that's what we want to do. We will focus our impact on continuing to drive change in the built environment space. And we've kind of already started to do that. One way that we've done that and we've announced this year is that we've made all of our products carbon neutral. Everything we make or sell at Interface comes with a zero carbon impact to our customers. Why did we do it? Because we spent 20 years reducing our carbon footprint and we could afford to do it, but we also want to provoke our competitors to do the same. So now that we've done that, we are actively going after specifications. People like the state of California, the state of New York, our large corporate clients, and we're saying to them, demand this of all suppliers. Not just all carpet suppliers, all flooring suppliers, all interior suppliers, and by the way, the people who are constructing your buildings, demand this of them. And we really hope we're going to push the market forward in that path. The second way that we're trying to do that is to show the industry what's possible. So when we launched this mission, the next best thing that our CEO did, other than standing up publicly and acknowledging that global warming was a problem and we were going to focus on it, he challenged our innovation team to create a prototype carpet tile that actually stored CO2. So not one that was carbon neutral, but one that went a step beyond that and used raw materials that removed CO2 from the atmosphere and incorporated them into our product. And what was really interesting about that challenge is our innovation team was able to identify on their first pass 45 different raw materials that were commercially available that stored CO2. These are things that are either biological and in the growing process actually sequester or suck in CO2. They are plastics that are made from carbon that's captured from the atmosphere and injected into a plastic. And it was a moment for our innovation team where they realized we never saw these materials because no one challenged us to look there. No one challenged us to go beyond. And so when we talk about how does that actually work, it is about locking carbon into these stable solids, like plastics, like straw. There's a really fantastic company that I don't know if you guys have heard of called Carbon Pure. They're actually capturing carbon from the atmosphere and putting it into concrete. There are companies now who are making diamonds out of captured CO2. There are companies who are making plastics out of CO2. So it's a really kind of interesting opportunity for us. That's what we challenged our innovation team to do. And using 3 different raw materials and 3 different layers of our product, they were able to create something that over the life cycle of the carpet tile, which is how we measure it, not just what we use to make it, but basically